back to another episode of the Content Clubhouse podcast presented by The First Call. I'm Nathan Moore, and I'm thrilled to bring to you guys this week a conversation with perhaps the most athletic golf content creator out there. I'm, of course, talking about Evan Thompson, former All-American linebacker and member of the men's golf team at Kennesaw State University. He's since hung up his football cleats, but he's now full-time pursuing his dreams of elite, amateur, and potentially even professional golf and filming his journey along the way. In this conversation, we talk a lot about how the content creation, the followers, and more importantly, the sponsorships are fueling and funding his pursuit of championship golf personally, and how the goalposts for him have shifted over the years and what success really looks like for him as he continues to grow. So without further ado, here's our conversation with Evan Thompson. All right, welcome back to another episode of the Content Clubhouse podcast presented by The First Call. I'm Nathan Moore, and I am thrilled to be joined today by Evan Thompson, the internet's favorite dual sport athlete, a guy who knows cover four just as well as par fours. Evan, before we get into what you've been up to lately as truly one of the rising stars of golf content creation, as a huge football fan, I gotta scratch that itch first and ask, so dual sport athletes are extremely rare, especially at the collegiate level. You obviously played at a high level for Kennesaw State University as well as being on the golf team there. But quickly, which one of those, golf and football, which did you pick up first, and did either come more naturally to you, and what were some of the challenges of trying to do both?
Yeah, I appreciate you having me, first off. This is definitely a blessing to be on here and share the story a little bit, but I played football ever since I was 5 years old. I didn't really know any different. I played every sport you can think of, but football was the one that really, really stuck out and that I was good at. I just loved hitting people, and I loved, the contact of football. So that's kind of really where it started. And then golf, I really didn't start until I was 15, 16 years old. So, I got a late start into golf, and you talk about what was more, fitting or, what I picked up faster, and it was golf. Right when I started, I think my first score was like 90 something, and like my first ever round, and then I immediately broke 90, broke 80. So it was like I picked it up really quickly, and I got good really fast, and I was like, this is really strange, because I knew how hard golf was, and I just had a really natural knack for it. And I was like, maybe I could, my parents were like, do you want to try to compete? And I was like, sure. I gave it a few times and kind of look up now, and here we are. So it's kind of crazy.
Yeah, I gotta say, I don't know that I've ever heard a more unrelatable golf journey than that one right there. Yeah, I picked it up, started breaking 80, and there we go.
Yeah.
We both know it's definitely a much more arduous journey than that. But talking about how you got into the game of golf and kind of mixed football and golf while you're at Kennesaw State, did you find that in any way the two sports were a bit more similar than they may look on the surface? Because I got to say, having played football and golf myself, although not nearly at the levels that you did, I can hardly imagine two more different sports. But as somebody who has done both at a high level, is there something you learned from either that's helped you playing the other one?
That's a really, really good question. I think the biggest thing, man, that I've learned with both sports is that preparation is the ultimate factor in success with both sports. The more I prepare, the better I do, and it goes for anything. The nature of each sport is completely different. Like, I can't use my kickoff mentality in golf. It never works. I think I top it every time. I want to go run down on kickoff on the first tee. So I think just preparing the right way and disassociating your brain to, understand that, you're not in a fight or flight mode on the football field. You're more in like a controlled you versus you setting on the golf course. If you can disassociate that, you'll be good. And I just had to learn it the hard way. So definitely a lot more similarities than you think, but preparation is the only thing that I can really pinpoint that was very similar.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely sounds like a lot of the mental aspects are certainly similar. You talk about the mindset that you have to be in, and any really good golfer will tell you, 90% of making good scores is between your ears, right?
Yes.
So,
Yep.
Kind of turning over to now your very competitive golf career, a torn labrum meant the end more or less of your football career, but your journey in golf has skyrocketed since then. You're, I'd say, in the minority of golf creators as someone whose social brand, and correct me if I'm wrong, more grew out of your pursuit of basically being as good at golf as you possibly could. I mean, you're a high level amateur. You're out here trying to qualify for state amateurs, for U.S. amateurs, for U.S. Opens. At what point in your golf journey did you decide, rather than me just trying to be as good as I possibly can, maybe I can do this content thing as well?
I'll give you an exact answer to that question because it was a pretty life-changing one for me. I was in the middle of a practice round in college at Kennesaw State when I was playing both sports. I was in the middle of a practice round. I remember it like it was yesterday. I played Augusta's event down in obviously Augusta, Georgia, right before the Masters, and I got an email from Wilson, and it was a 1-year contract for playing the clubs, and it was based on the content I was doing, not necessarily the results I was doing. And when I saw that, I was like, okay, shoot, so if I make more content, that means I can make more money and compete as well as documenting my journey. I was like, there's nothing better than that. And for me to document my journey and see the progress along the way, but also, make a living and support my family, there's just nothing better than that. So that was the exact moment that I knew I could do this full time. And right when I figured that out, I just went 100% in, and I just gave it all I got and gave it up to God. And now here we are.
Yeah, that's a really cool story. And we've learned a little bit from our last conversation on the podcast, kind of a little bit about the behind the scenes in terms of how these partnerships work and just how critical they are. So was Wilson your very first one?
Yeah, that was like my first. I mean, I received a few like brand deals and advertisements here and there, but like first to like actually commit and know that I can do it full time was that. Yeah.
Yeah. And so in that sense, you really sound pretty similar to like a lot of these guys chasing PGA Tour careers. Like they're on that mini tour and having a sponsor, be that a company or even just like a local lawyer who's willing to foot you your entry fees for a year while you're trying to get off the ground. I mean, you just hear these awesome kind of rags to riches story about starting small and just how important that investment on the front end was. So I guess if you can just elaborate a little bit on, what did that partnership with Wilson allow you to do, not only in pursuing, your golf career and maybe entering new tournaments or maybe traveling more than you would have, but also investing in the content side. Did that help you, start to work with any kind of editors or get some better equipment that could, advance your career?
Yeah, no, I mean, it kind of advanced it pretty rapidly, I would say, just because if there's no revenue coming in, you can't really produce the content and go travel and go, play. Golf is very expensive. So you can't really afford to play. Like, I mean, I don't, not to say this in a mean way, but I don't have any help from, my parents, or I don't have any, this is all what I do full time. So for me, it was a really big statement that like, okay, well, if I keep working hard and I keep, putting out great stuff, like brands like Wilson can, come on, and it was able to allow me to hire an editor. It was allow me to purchase new equipment, allow me to have the latest and best iPhone to, record myself on the course and go travel to all these cool courses. And, when a brand hits me up to come play an event, I can do it, so that's kind of what it allowed me to do. And then when people see you, going to events and traveling and playing really sick courses, they're going to follow it. So that's kind of like how it all rapidly started to grow.
For sure. And yeah, you're definitely blowing up. I mean, as of late, you've done some really cool videos with NFL stars like Evan Ingram and others. And now recently getting tips from major champions, I see Cam Smith at some live events, which is awesome. And not to mention playing some incredible golf courses along the way. So now that you're kind of at this stage where, obviously you're still pursuing bigger and better things, but you've accomplished a lot to this point, right? What's an experience where you truly turn to yourself like, wow, I can't believe me posting videos of my golf swing on the internet brought me to this moment?
Oh man, the experience. I mean, there's really only one experience that I can really pinpoint that is just kind of a pinch me moment and just so grateful and blessed to do it is when I made the USAM. When I made the US Amateur, like I documented my journey from the worst rounds to the best rounds to whatever. I just kept posting over the year. I'm like, I know I'm going to break through at some point. I don't know when, but I know I will. And I shot 68 and qualified for the USAM. And it just, for me, I've just been doubted a lot just coming from football and just people knowing that like golf is so hard. So being able to see the progress in my game and document it and just have people along for the ride. When I made that tournament and I was there with the best amateurs in the world, it was just like that experience just showed me that, you know, if you just document your journey, like anything is truly possible. And now like I have hopes of, you know, making the US Open, making a PGA Tour event. So that just showed me that experiences like that can go a very, very long way.
That's so interesting that you picked that moment too, right? Because I think, you know, most creators who, you know, no knock against them, but who are not pursuing, you know, high level championship golf would probably say, oh yeah, a really cool playing partner, a really cool course that I played. But you chose something that you earned just as much as every other of the, you know, hundreds of you know, thousands of people who signed up to try to qualify for a USAM, right? So quickly on that, I mean, I didn't come in thinking I was going to ask about this, but what did you learn kind of competitively from that event, right? Because you came in and it sounds like you had a pretty hot start in your golf career, but you ran up against, I'm sure, a field of some really, really good golfers. How have you taken that experience and applied that to your golf game going forward?
Yeah. I would say, man, I learned so much in that week, more than I ever have in my whole career of golf. It taught me what matters in the game. And it also taught me to take advantage of opportunities like that. I think I put out 18 pieces of content within 6 days. So like, and I gained like 100,000 followers just from that week alone, from 7 days or something, like some crazy number. And it just really taught me the things that matter. You got to hit fairways and you got to make putts. If you don't do that, you really can't compete. So those are the two things. I think I shot 71, 77 or 71, 78. The first day I was making putts and the second day I just didn't. And that's kind of why the score was higher. And, you know, I think I was six shots away from making match play. But at the end of the day, it showed me so much, and I'm so much of a better player now than I, you know, did before I played the USAM, and more, I guess, controlled my emotions, my mental game, my decision making, all that.
Yeah, and not to mention, you say having put out, you know, 17 pieces of content during that week. I doubt too many other people you were playing against were grinding like that off the course that week. So talk a little bit about that. How has pursuing this media career, how do you balance that with trying to play the best golf that you can play on the course?
Honestly, it's very, very hard, but I know it's the way that I have to do it in order to afford to do it, if that makes sense. I've just been so blessed in it just to record and document and kind of just hold this up behind me and have, you know, a guy help video me on the course. And it, you know, it allows me to pay the bills and support my family. But it's just something I have to do. And so when I have to do something, I just make it happen. So like I stayed up, you know, I take you through one of my days. So I played practice round with Miles Russell and Parker Bell. I think we had like a 1 p.m. tee time. So I was out there at like 10 a.m. practicing, getting all my numbers right, played the practice round, come back. I think I edited for like 6 hours, worked out, went to bed at like 1 a.m. and teed off in the morning at like 8 a.m. So it's like I have to do it in order to make it happen. And I don't think I ever like make excuses, you know, because at the end of the day, this is kind of what I do and what I signed up for. So it's very hard to do both, but if you know that you can do it, you can put your mind to it and get it done.
I almost started to ask, with the growth of your channels, right? I mean, huge followings across Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube these days. I almost started to ask, like, have the goalposts shifted for you in terms of is it almost more about the content now rather than the pursuit of your own game? But based off your answers, it really sounds like that's not the case. Like, greatness is still what you're after on the golf course.
That's a really good question. Again, I've gotten asked that quite a bit recently, just because I have been producing a lot more content on a higher level. The priorities have shifted. Honestly, I'm gonna stay amateur this year. Like I don't think my game's in a spot to be professional, especially because I had that experience of seeing Luke Glanton, Gordon Sargent, Jackson Coven, the best amateurs in the world, and I see my game versus theirs, and it's just like I'm just not there yet at all. And I also see the pros that I play against, like, going against Cam Smith. Like, it's just that they are so good. It's almost hard to wrap your head around if you're just a normal, like, you just see them hit it to 5 feet and they make the putt for birdie. You just see, like, it's normal to you. But you don't understand how hard that is to do that every time. And so it's kind of shifted my priority that content can really support my family and make a living. And people can see me actively pursue that level that those people are at. And that's the best thing about it, is because, like, I'm never going to give up. Even if it takes me 100 years, like, I'm not going to give up to, like, get to that level. And so it's kind of just shifted a little bit, but I'm still on the pursuit of just trying to get as good as I possibly can and maximize my potential.
So I guess, can you ever imagine a scenario where the media actually surpasses that, I guess, to where what, I'm actually considering myself a full-time golf content creator. I'm putting more of my effort into that, and if I qualify for a USA, I'm great, but it's more about the content. Can you see yourself ending up in a place like that? And not that there's anything wrong with it, but it's certainly different than where you started.
I would say yes and no. I would say yes because there is so much money in it that, like, people don't understand how, lucrative this job is. And second of all, no, because I'm a competitor by nature. I just always want to compete, and I always want to see how good I can get, especially at a sport that is so hard and, that I haven't, like, you're never going to master. So I'm on the fence about that. Like, I always want to compete, but also, like, I want to make content at a high level, like, each and every day. I love creating. I've been a creative ever since I was little. So I would say I'm really on the fence about that.
Well, want to change gears a little bit here. Your faith is something that's been very apparent across all of your channels. Your faith in Jesus is clearly very important to you, which I personally really admire as a believer myself, and definitely have been inspired by some of your videos. So as somebody who's very much living your golf life in the public eye, you kind of have to make an effort to bring up some of this stuff about God and about Jesus. Why is that important to you to proclaim who he is and what he means for your life?
Yeah, man, I that's the one thing about content creation and social media is a lot of people are scared to proclaim their faith and hold their foundation and let people know about it, which I'm not ashamed at all. I think it's the reason why I'm here today, is because God has gifted me with these talents and the ability to share the gospel and share how good he is. He's changed my life. I know that. I know I wouldn't be here without him. And I just think that, when you have a solid foundation and know, like, where your path is set from, I think the anxiety, the fear, the doubt, the worry that comes from the world is left behind. And that's kind of what I try to portray in my videos, is just like the goodness of God can never be unseen. And that's kind of what I just want to portray out there. And I just do it in a way that my actions speak louder than the words. I just want people to be, see that that's how I act and that's how I, am. And although sometimes when I hit a bad shot, I want to do bad things, but I just want to, be the best person I can be and bring good into this world.
Yeah, I said to somebody the other day playing golf, I was like, golf is the biggest test of my religion for sure. definitely a source of anxiety and a lot of things that we shouldn't be focusing on. But in a lot of ways, though, I'm sure that it has helped. You hear a lot of the athletes talk about, when they're not so concerned with the result, right? Like you hear Scotty Scheffler talk about that. He's like, when I know that what I do on the golf course does not define me, it's freed him up so much to play good golf. Have you experienced anything similar on the golf course and kind of with your content?
Yeah, obviously as competitors, you're always focused on executing as best as you possibly can. However, for me, I feel as though I see it differently. I see it as though God puts opportunities in place for me to capitalize on. And, if you live your life the right way, He will abundantly provide for that. And lead people to Him and grow the kingdom, He will produce those opportunities for you. And that's kind of where I see it. And that's why I'm in the position I am today, is because of Him. I would not be possible without Him. So that's kind of like how I see my game. Is like, if I play great, awesome. If I play bad, so be it. Like, all the glory goes to Him, and I know opportunities will come out of just being a follower of Him and bringing good to this world.
Well, before I get you out of here, we talked about your dual sport. You got a lot of different hats on, so to speak, in terms of the football career, golf, now golf content creation. But you're also an entrepreneur, totally away from all of this, launching the dual sport athletic wear brand. Give us a quick rundown. What's the story behind that, and what are you hoping to accomplish with it?
Yeah, man. I've just noticed with playing golf and with all these athletes all across the world and all different sports, there is a similar mindset and attributes that we all have and that we all focus on, and that's getting the best that we possibly can in life at anything we do. And I noticed that, and I wanted to start a brand, which is Dual, that represents that. That represents that community of athletes that is just designed and built for more. They want to achieve more, they want to do more, they want to be the best they can for their family, and it doesn't have to be sports, it can be anything. And that's kind of the mindset and the motto of the brand, is just wearing something that allows you to push yourself to do more. And that's where Dual Sport brand kind of comes from. And we have our first golf collection that just dropped. We have our second coming out in April. That's going to be a 20-piece collection, and we're going to have lifestyle, golf, and performance apparel. And we're just super excited to keep growing this community. And it's growing like crazy. And I'm just super excited to keep seeing this brand and people come into this community and flourish and grow. And I just want to help people get to where they want to go. So that's kind of like the whole mission and the vision of the brand.
Really, really cool stuff. So over the next few weeks, I know you've got some big qualifying events coming up. You've just recently come off a really cool trip down in South Florida, filming with some folks like Kyle Berkshire and others. We're hopefully going to get you out to North Georgia to get back on the Keep here soon. But what can you tell us about what you got coming up? Any exciting videos people should be on the lookout for?
Yeah, man. I have some really, really exciting things in the works. Starting a new series called Record Breakers. Think of Bryson's Break 50, but with professional athletes from the back tee. So we're going to try to – I'm playing with, likes of – won't say any names yet, but a lot of very, very well-known professional athletes, and we'll try to go from the backs and break the course record. Just going to be something where we can play great golf, but also be vulnerable on the golf course and share, that vision and that mission for life. And then also my qualifiers coming up. I might be in a PGA Tour event later this year in October, which would be pretty dang special for me to make my PGA Tour debut. And then obviously the 1v1s, the matches against, the biggest creators in the world. So super excited, ready to rock and roll this year. And big thanks to you to having me on and getting to share my story a little bit.
Absolutely, man. Well, you heard it here first. LeBron James coming to Evan Thompson's channel here pretty soon. So stay tuned, everybody. Again, thank you so much, Evan. Blast talking to you, and good luck with everything, man.
Of course. I appreciate you having me on.